Hoople Doop Tiddly Peeps.
Oh,
I'm Ford, talking to you from Theory of Anything Land. And we're about to come down to Earth to natter in your earhole for the next hour or so.
Hour? Okay.
Hour or so, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So, you guys, how are you doing?
Hello. Who was that?
That's the Hoops.
It's the Hoops, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever watch the Hoops?
Gosh, it's been a while.
Well, yeah.
Who will do tiddly poops? Is that what
Tiddly
it
peeps.
is?
Peeps, yeah.
Tiddly Peeps.
Tiddly peeps. Oh, that rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever seen the Numberjacks?
Mm.
Yeah, well, it's nothing like that.
Okay.
Excellent.
The Trinity used to love Lumberjacks.
Yeah, I know, right?
With the give yourself a shiny, wasn't it? And things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like giving yourself a shiner. Yeah. Anyway, this is back in the eye, I meant. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, maybe that reference is only for Devon, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So, Devon, how are you this fine morning?
You know what, I'm good.
Yeah?
It's a bright and early morning.
Another early recording.
Yes, just how Ford likes it.
Now, hang on. We're not here because of Ford.
I didn't suggest it. But it may be my fault.
Yeah.
It's your busy schedule. Yeah.
No.
You're the only one who's got anything to do, Devon.
Oh. Don't know about that.
Oh dear.
Perhaps how are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm okay after I've had my coffee and my eyes are working properly. Yeah, it's not
Pretty
the
good.
most natural place to be at 6:30 in the morning, but there we are.
No. Do you have any pickup for us from the last episode, or
Yeah, we've now officially been podcasting for 6 months.
Wow.
Oh, my dear.
Yeah, I think our first episode went out. Was it the 6th or the 7th of January?
Oh, I come on.
Yeah.
So at time of recording, 8th of July. Yeah.
I've had relationships that haven't lasted as long as it.
Oh, have you?
Oh no, sorry, plants.
You know,
I've had
we-
plants that haven't lasted.
Plants. Let's say I never knew about them. Yeah, 6 months of podcasting. I've got it in my mind on the 12-month episode, if we do last that long, I want to go through some statistics on content and stuff. I don't know, it's a bit too soon to do anything like that. So we'll keep our powder dry on that. So yeah.
I had a little something to talk about. There's been some news come across the blogosphere. There's Foundation. A little while ago, I did a book segment, and I said how I listened through Foundation, and I didn't much like it.
That's right.
Apple TV are now coming out with a film, I believe.
A film?
A film, yes.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I didn't know there was such a thing as Apple TV.
What?
That's good.
That was Apple TV.
You knew about Apple TV. Surely.
Apple do phones; they don't do TV.
They do
Did you not know
lots of
about Apple
things.
TV? It's been out for a while now.
Oh wow!
One of the major streaming platforms. Yeah, I've got it.
Major. Oh my.
Yeah.
It's a little box
Wow.
that you put in front of your TV.
You
Oh, that's
often
nice.
see it mentioned alongside, not as big as Netflix or Prime Video or
Disney
others,
Plus.
but it's probably bigger than things like BritBox, maybe
Yeah.
Disney. I don't know.
Right,
Yeah.
well, okay. Anyway, Foundation looks good in the trailer. Yeah, it makes it look better than the book made it sound.
I've mentioned Apple TV before because of the series called SEE. Do you remember? I've mentioned it on the podcast.
I wasn't
Got the
listening.
actor from Game of Thrones. You don't listen to this show, do you? Yeah.
No, not really.
The big guy off of Game of Thrones, Diana? Daenerys' husband.
Oh, Khal Drago.
Yeah,
Carl-
he takes
oh,
the lead in the series C, which I have mentioned before, and that is a
Jason
big
Momoa.
show. Big
Yeah, I
show
remember
on
we talked about
Apple
this,
TV.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm not going mad. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Anyway, Foundation is
Yeah.
coming. Is coming or is on Apple TV?
I don't know. There's a trailer released. It looks pretty good. That's all I can say.
Ah,
Yes, and I think it's a teaser, less than a trailer.
that'd
But
be
there you
interesting.
go.
I'll have to look that up later. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to pick up something as well. We had a comment from our last video, or last podcast on YouTube. It's from our producer. It's to do with 13 Reasons Why, because I brought it up. I think I was watching it.
Is she shutting us down?
She's disagreeing with what I said.
Only
Slightly.
what you said. Okay,
Yeah, I
good.
think so.
I was going to disagree with all of us.
She's got two different comments to make on 13 Reasons Why. I'll try and go quick because it's quite long.
Okay.
One in relation to my segment and the other with the Dad's segment. Firstly, she'll address Dad's segment. Apparently you asked, is it helpful to that generation? She said the main reason Selena Gomez wanted to produce this series is so that it would help teenagers and young adults. The show deals with a lot of issues that many male and female people go through, for example, blackmail, suicide attempts, mental health, drug abuse, racism, insecurities about sexuality, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse,
Wow.
That is.
and trauma.
I had a very different childhood to these people.
It's a lot of fun, yeah.
She said, I think that it's very important for people, not just teenagers, to watch this series because it raises awareness of what people could be going through without others realising it. A lot of these topics are deemed unspeakable, especially in Christian home environment, and could mean that a lot of people are suffering in silence. 13 Reasons Why it doesn't promote these topics to be the right way to do things, but instead it does an excellent job of portraying how horrible and dark the aftermath is, which then shows anyone that is thinking of committing any of these topics that it isn't really worth it, and there are others who want to help. Finally, as Devon said at the beginning of each series, they do refer helplines that you can get in touch with. So to answer your question, yes, it is helpful to those who are open to accepting the help. Dad also asked, do the characters demonstrate the right thing? The answer, like in the situation, do they do like the right thing to do or the wrong thing? The answer to this one is no, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like Devon said, the characters act very human. This is because 13 Reasons Why is here to show people that they aren't alone in how or what they might be thinking. I've said to some people that I wouldn't recommend them watching it, but actually I want to change that to this. If you are watching it because you want to be more aware of what kind of things could be happening to people around you, then yes, I recommend you watching it. But if you are thinking of watching it because you want to watch it for the story, then I would think more personally as to whether that would be best for you. As a side note, this series is rated 18+, however it is aimed for people around 16+. It's like high school age. I'm guessing they had to rate it at 18+ because of the topics they show. All the facts that I've written here are based on interviews and that she's watched and listened to over the years. In relation to Devon's segment about binge watching, when season 4 of 13 Reasons Why came out, I watched all 10 episodes within the first 4 days of its release. Gosh dang, it took weeks. I watched the first 6 episodes in one day. Well, they're an hour long. And I made myself take at least one day off watching anymore because I felt like it was messing with my head and bringing up past anxieties I'd had, which obviously isn't good. So I definitely agree with Ford when he said that sometimes binge watching can make you feel depressed. Thank you for reading this. Sorry, it's long.
Listener, if you want to see the whole comment, maybe go back to the last episode. It'll be there somewhere. Wow. I think it depends on your topic. It depends what you're watching as to whether you can binge watch it or not.
Yeah.
And how susceptible you are, I think.
I kind of see what she's talking about, saying that for a lot of people it could be like a way out, or actually I'm not alone in what I'm experiencing. But it's kind of contradictory a little bit. Obviously, she binge watched like the first 6 episodes. It's kind of contradictory, being like, I think it's not harmful, but it harmed me.
Yeah.
But obviously, then maybe if you didn't watch all 6 episodes really, really quick in the same day, then it wouldn't have harmed you. But obviously, the potential is still there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it depends on the person who's watching it as well.
I think anything's bad for you if you have it in too high quantity, you know. Anyway.
I think my reservation still stands that if the creators of that series are shining a light onto issues, I think my worry is that it may be seen as permission giving or enabling to say, look, this is okay, you know, you're normal if you feel like this. And I think it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes. I'm not suggesting that it's healthy to bury your head in the sand and pretend you've got no problems if you have. That would be my only worry. I wonder how many people felt they were fine until they watched this and suddenly started to think, well, am I fine? Maybe I'm not fine, you know. That's one thing that gives me cause for concern. And I know you can't do a psych test to make sure somebody's well enough to watch something. And maybe it's the people who've got problems that should be watching it. But the other thing that jumped out when you were reading that is it makes a bit of a mockery of the certification if they're aiming something at an audience that isn't legally allowed to watch it.
Yeah, that's
Do you know what I mean? The certification is 18, but it's aimed at people who are younger than that. That kind of makes a sham of the whole certification thing, doesn't it? This is for you, but you're not allowed to watch it. What is that all about? I don't get that. Anyway. That's all I would say about that. I'm a bit of a fuddy-duddy regarding certifications and things like that. I think they should be taken more seriously than they really are by most people.
I think.
I mean, there are 18s that I won't watch as a 53-year-old, you know. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot worse things out there to watch, and with those things, you have friends or parents or your own general conviction whether you actually want to watch it or not, or whether it's actually good for you or not. So I think that's just the same for 13 Reasons Why. I think there should be some self-awareness to be able to think, okay, as Trin said, is this actually good for me or not? Because at the end of the day, there are worse things that you could be watching, but we don't actually really question those.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think probably the reason why this is a contentious one is because it touches so closely on real life.
Yeah.
When you're watching something that's violent or science fiction-y, or there's a distancing between you and it, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, yes, we often come back to it. Game of Thrones has got some pretty awful scenes in it, but because it's fantasy genre, distant in time and space, we're not likely to connect with it on the same level as we are going to this genre of entertainment, if you can call it that.
Yeah, that, and it's aimed at young people as well. So I think it's kind of worrying that this kind of thing is aimed at our young people.
Yeah,
especially.
But she's a supporter of it, and she sees value in it, and we give credit to that, you know. And there are probably other people who do as well.
I've not seen it. Maybe Devon, you can confirm or deny this, but I feel like it shines a light on the downsides to doing these things.
Yeah,
the downsides to doing drugs. I don't know, because they have a hard time of it, don't they? These characters.
Yeah.
Because they're indulging in all these stupid things.
Yeah. So if a character chooses the wrong choice and you see the negative consequences of that, then that in a way is showing a negative outcome could have a positive influence on somebody, enabling them to say, "Oh, I better change the way I'm going, otherwise I could end up like that." Yeah.
Off the top of my head, it does that quite a lot. And
okay.
When someone does something stupid, you think, like, you as an audience thinking, "Oh, why did you do that? It's so stupid," and it leads to a lot of issues down the line as well.
Yeah.
So
I, on reflection, I don't have to see, or I don't necessarily want the writers to have written a story or stories that just show people going, "Oh no, I'm in this terrible situation. What shall I do? Oh, I'll do this, and then everything's okay again."
A bit boring.
That's not necessary, but as long as it doesn't exemplify or glorify negative choices as being positive, you know.
Yeah. Cool. Sorted.
Wow. A lot going on there. We needed a whole segment just for that. Well, one other quick comment I wanted to make as a pick-up from previous episodes was our last episode, our homework. Remember me saying that Hitchhiker's homework we did, that there was a lot of extra content on the DVDs that I hadn't seen.
Oh, yes.
There was 2 separate commentaries, you know, when you watch the film back with a commentary audio overlay. I watched one with several cast members and the director. A couple of things that came out from that I really wanted to share. You remember the scene in the pub at the very beginning when Arthur's house is being knocked down? There's a rather odd-looking lady sits at the end of the bar. Staring. Yeah. Well, apparently that is the actress who played Trillian in the stage show of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Wow.
Yeah.
She has not aged well.
No. And she looks rather... she says nothing, and a rather bewildering character in that. I love the way that's done, actually, looking back at it. I thought, what is wrong with her? She looks a bit odd. Anyway, I mean, the stage show, I can't remember when that happened, but it could be a long while ago. And another famous cameo appearance was while we are listening to Vogon Jeltz's warning to the planet being destroyed, and the scenes flash all around the world, and people going mad and everything, chaos erupting. There's a calm, serene scene of a lady sitting outside a cafe reading a newspaper.
Right.
Can you remember that?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, and that lady is Douglas Adams' mum.
Wow.
So she made an appearance in the film as well.
Hang on, she's alive? Wow.
Yeah.
Because Douglas Adams dead, isn't he? Did he die of unnatural causes? Then?
Yes, he did. He
wasn't very old.
Oh, was it cancer?
No, yeah, he died in his 50s, yeah.
Oh.
But he died in his 50s about 20 years ago. So he'd now be in his 70s, but the film was made 15 years ago, so she could have been in her 70s or 80s.
Maths.
Yeah, maths on the radio. No, not on the radio. Maths in a podcast. Anyway, but she makes a very brief appearance at the beginning in that sequence, and then when we're reinitializing Earth Mark II, you see her again in the same scene repeated. So yeah, so 2 appearances for Douglas Adams' mum in the film he never saw. Yeah.
That's sad.
There's loads more, and I've still got another audio commentary to listen to, but I just thought those two things are worth commenting on because I'm a nerd when it comes to hitchhikers.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Very good.
Well, listener, if you have any comment on anything we're going to talk about or have talked about, please pop down in the comment section, grab yourself a hot beverage, and enjoy the show.
Paps. Segment. Subject.
I've been given over the numerous episodes that we've done so far. Did you announce what episode number this was, Ford?
No.
Oh, so here we are in episode 22.
Getting critiqued it.
I occasionally like to draw upon for content my favourite men's magazine called Sorted. It's a contemporary magazine for any listener of any faith and none. And there's a great article in there. And my eyes are drawn usually to the one page with large pictures articles rather than the 3 or 4 pages with lots of content. So I'm going to read you an article from the July-August edition of Sorted magazine on page 70, and it's headed Many Ways of Knowing, and it comes under the heading of Science and Faith. So I'll read this out and we can comment perhaps as we go or all at the end. It's up to you. Okay. So this is written by Dennis Alexander, is the Emeritus Director of the Faraday Institute for Science and Religion at St Edmund's College, Cambridge, and also a molecular biologist and an author on science and religion. And this is what he has to say. Our conversation was being filmed, so I sat under the bright lights. In the armchair across the stage sat a well-known atheist biochemist, Larry Moran. He was a popular blogger who liked tearing naive religious people to shreds online. Like him, I was there as a biochemist, but also as a Christian. In the gloom beyond the lights were a few hundred people curious to see their local atheist hero chew up this religious British visitor. The place was the University of Toronto in Canada, and I was definitely the visitor. The topic that we'd been given to discuss was, is there a conflict between science and religion? And it quickly became clear that the atheist debater believed that science is the only way to obtain reliable knowledge. So of course, science and religion were in conflict. But in reality, as I pointed out, we have many ways of knowing. I know that my name is Dennis and that Moscow is the capital of Russia. A lot of knowing involves simply being told things. I know that sunsets are beautiful. I know that my wife loves me. That's based on 49 years of marriage and the evidence of countless acts of kindness. The evidence for my conviction is huge, a belief far more secure than many of the conclusions of the scientific papers that I have read every week. But I cannot publish this particular belief in a science journal. I know that democracy is a better form of government than a dictatorship. I've lived in both, but that's not science. There are many ways of knowing. As it happens, science does support the idea that there is a creator God who upholds everything that exists, but it cannot prove it. In quote marks. Looking at the world from the perspectives of either science or religion is like looking at the same scene through 2 different windows. Science is asking how it all works. Faith is asking the bigger questions. Why is it there? And what does that mean for my life? With many ways of knowing, there really isn't a conflict between science and religion. There was no vote following the debate, but hopefully it got people thinking. Science is fantastically important for our daily lives and in helping us to understand God's universe better. But so much important knowledge lies beyond science. It's not an in-depth article, but I think it raises an important point and it's very brief. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I thought that really summed the whole subject up well for me anyway. That the key line that was said there, science is asking how it all works, faith is asking the bigger questions. Why is it there, and what does it mean for my life? Yeah.
I think I don't know if that's quite true that it's a bigger question in terms of it feels more intimate and more important. I'd say. What does it mean to me? How can I? What does it mean to me? I guess that feels more important. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay. Do you mean the how question or the why question? Which is the most important to you?
The why. Yeah.
The why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is what he's saying. Faith is the bigger asking, not answering necessarily, but asking bigger questions. That's another thing. Yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention, whether you meant to or not.
No.
It's saying it's not answering all those questions, but it's asking those questions. The word asking is, I think, quite significant. Without faith, we wouldn't be asking some of the questions that we do ask with faith. So surely that gives us a good reason.
Yeah, I find the more you look into this sort of thing, science, and also the debates surrounding science and creation, and I think the more reassured I feel that it's okay because smart people believe this stuff too, and it's okay because they do have answers to these questions.
Yeah, men of intellect can also be men of faith. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the sort
women,
of brain that
and women, sexist.
Steady on. I don't have the sort of brain that can sort of hold on to all these facts and figures or whatever, but it does give me great reassurance when I hear it and see people standing for it.
Yeah.
I'm not the sort of person who could do it, but I think it's important that someone does.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there who do.
I mean, you're a big one for looking and YouTubing and listening to speakers on this, aren't you? I think I might be right in saying apologetics is something you've talked about on the podcast before.
Oh, have I? Oops.
Have you? Yeah. Apologetics is just the process of explaining why we believe things, and explaining our faith. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that a good way of
defining it? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Devon?
Yeah.
You're still there, yeah. You're compiling your thoughts.
Yeah. I think, as they say, it's two different resources, two different meanings of what kind of information you're actually trying to gather, which is the important thing. I don't think that science and religion do clash, although there are some things that they would use in science to say, oh, well, this can't be true in the Bible then because of carbon dating or whatever. And
that's where it gets complicated.
That is where it gets complicated, and that's where you go, well, if my God can do everything, can't he make a rock that looks old?
I agree.
And it's just like, or was it not actually that time period? Was it actually longer? Was the day period more longer than this before they made days? And there's a lot to take into consideration when you're trying to explain your belief, especially through the means and medium of science as well, which I think you can do, as Ford was saying. But I think that isn't really the focus. I don't think it should be the focus, because I don't think we have to convince ourselves, because that kind of defeats the whole purpose of faith. If you're finding evidence and trying to convince yourself and trying to hash out this hypothesis to make it a theory and to make it fact, then it's not faith.
No, that's right. I think, yes, you make a good point there. Many of us have different ways of working these things through. Some people need logic, they need explanation, they need answers. Other people are far more able to take things on trust and at apparent value, face value, and say, okay, yeah, I can live with that, or I can live with not knowing the full story, if you like.
Yeah.
And I often have conversations with people that, well, yes, but, and they all want to know, and they're looking for the next question rather than, and sometimes I can say, well, I don't know, I've never thought of that question, so I don't have an answer for you. That's never been an issue for me. I've come to where I am on my faith walk without needing to know the answer to that, for me to be able to feel good about who I am and where I am. But it's good, as Ford said, to know that there are intellectuals, and I think my slip of the tongue when I said the men of intellect, because I do think it's probably a man issue mostly. Men do tend to try and work things out more.
Well, they're more aggressive, I think.
Everybody in the same barrel, because there are women who are very like-minded, and there are men who are much more contextual in other ways, but men find it much more difficult to take that, I hate this phrase, a step of faith, without knowing where they're going to put their foot.
Do you
know
think?
what I mean?
Do you think you have to come to that faith point in order to be a proper Christian? Like, if you're
Proper Christian, inverted commas.
if you need an answer, is it possible to be a Christian?
No.
Well,
I don't think there's any Christian who's got all the answers, is there? So
no. To be fair, there aren't any scientists who have all the answers either.
no, exactly.
But what I mean
Yeah.
is being a Christian definitely a faith issue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're relying on reason and seeable facts for your belief, then yeah, that is a big issue, because it's impossible to please God without faith.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But there's no problem in having questions, I don't think. I think God will honour that. He will work through that. He can. I mean, I know my own dad, your granddad, had a huge number of problems before he finally accepted God and Jesus into his life. He had a very scientific mind, and lots of oppositions to that step of faith, that first initial entry into the Christian belief, that he. And I don't think he ever got them all answered, but he put them in a proper, true context and proper position. I think if I could have asked him before he died, what did you get all those answers before you'd made that commitment? He would have probably said no. But it was just something somebody said that helped him to put them in the rightful place as being non-significant anymore, not significant enough to stop him wanting to have answers to all the other questions.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
whys. Yeah, the why questions.
There are a lot of questions that Christians ask scientists as well, and they can't answer in this whole debate realm, like the cosmological argument and the fine-tuning and irreducible complexity, all these different subjects. And
Yeah.
it's not really science versus faith. It's
No.
science versus science. Does it support faith? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, anyway. I mean, different debaters do different things. It's quite interesting, but yeah.
I mean, we're not going to solve this problem on a 20-minute chat slot in some obscure podcast that
You want to talk for 20 minutes?
I think we probably have.
The thing is, science gets very theoretical a lot of the time, and I feel like scientists like to act like theoretical science is actual science.
Yes.
And by that, they start saying things that you can't prove either, you know?
Yeah.
And saying that that's a good
thing.
reason not to believe in God. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're using faith right now as much as anyone else. When it comes to theoretical things, I mean.
I mean, is there any evidence for string theory? It's a theory, isn't it?
Yes.
There is evidence.
Does string theory come into the faith debate?
No, but I'm saying science has its own. That's just
Yeah.
one that pops off the top of my head. And these alternate universes that people, a lot of scientists are believing that they must exist.
Well, that's a split down the middle between loop quantum gravity, isn't it? And string
They're
theory.
all expressions of believing in something you can't prove. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, maybe we will be able to sometime in the future, but as it stands now, a lot of scientists seem to be theoretical. It's weird.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Scientists are just as capable of believing in things they can't prove. They can theorise, can't they? Is that enough? Thank
I'd say
you.
so.
Good job.
Oh, I feel we might get some feedback on that. There's a lot
Good.
to be said that we can't say now. Good.
Yeah, put your comments below, please.
Yeah, but try and keep them brief. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thoughts. Segment. Subject.
Okay, picture this, if you will. 200 years in the future, and you're dead.
Oh.
Now, yeah, this one's a bit lighter tone. I hope you're not too precious
Imagine being
about
dead. Yeah.
about the topic of death. Now, what would you want to be remembered for?
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
In the UK, there was a little poll done with between 800 and 45 people. What would they like to be remembered for? The top answer was a sense of humour.
Oh.
That's interesting, I thought. I wonder if you guys, what would you want to be remembered for?
I'll have a moment to think about that.
Oh,
Let
okay.
Devon go first.
It's kind of a double whammy to this, because the people that knew you what would they remember about you?
Yeah.
But then there's also, if you could have a legacy, as it were, people who never knew you but they've heard about you, what would you like them to hear about you? I feel like those answers could be two different ones, you know.
It's kind of a mix between what you think you are and what you want to be. So yeah, it's kind of a bit self-absorbed, I think, to focus too much on your legacy, but we all want to leave something good behind.
Yeah.
Whether that's money for our kids and our grandkids or whatever it is, a nice house for them or something like that, or if it's I've made a better world for other people who I don't know, then I think that can be a legacy as well, rather than what people think about you. Is what people can actually see and touch and experience because you've been there.
Interesting. I think without a goal, people tend to drift. And I think on this every now and again, I think, what sort of person do I want to be remembered as? And therefore it sort of guides me into what actions I should be taking right now. If that makes sense. Thinking on the aiming for something allows you to put a direction in, if that makes sense. It's how I sort of approach this whole what would I be remembered for sort of thing. I got a few suggestions here if you got nothing.
I mean, I got something.
Oh, go on then.
I'd like to be remembered as someone who does their best at what they put their mind to and actually excels in what they want. That's quite important to me. I hate the idea of failing, which is why, like, in every job I get, I just try my absolute best. Or if I'm getting really entertained by a game, I want to be the best at this game, or whatever it is. I just want to try and be the best. I don't really know why, but I like being the best, or like people to think, oh, because Devon's on the case, he'll do a good job.
Were you ever into Pokemon?
No.
Gotta be the best.
Be the very best.
Yep. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
that's my competitive inner voice talking.
Yeah, see, you already do that, don't you? You already chase that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think not many people would go around thinking, oh, I want to be remembered for being a tough nut who is always hard on people and everyone hated.
No.
But there are a lot of people out there who are a bit like that.
Yeah.
So clearly they don't think about this sort of thing.
Probably don't. No.
I suppose you're right.
People don't give it a second thought about their other people's perceptions of them, even now, let alone in hundreds of years' time. I do. It's interesting you chose a number 200 because I can't remember. I don't know about anything about my relatives from 200 years ago. I'm sure I could find some names if I look back on the family tree that my mum's gathered together. But I don't know anything about their personality types and what was important to them. I think it's a couple of things that you've both said, I think, is about the things that are eternal. What really matters about our lives now are not so much what we accumulate, what we achieve, what monetary, yes, it'd be nice to be able to leave something good for your children, because then they can do good with that, and hopefully it propagates and it's a blessing to more than just yourself, But I think what's more important is the number of lives you touch and how you touch them. I think one of the saddest things is to get to a person's funeral day, and unfortunately there's been a lot of funerals recently where this has had to be the case, and there's a handful of people there. That's an enforced situation that we're going through now, where not because a person didn't know anybody, it's because restrictions have prevented it. But when I've been to and know of funerals where there's 2 or 3 people and they're the only people that life has touched. Now that might be because they were never married and never had children, but even so, a single person who remains single for the whole of their life can touch other lives. And even if you're in your 90s when you go, you can still touch generations beyond your own, can't you? If you make if you try and help and make a difference in a person's life, when I'm 90 or 100, hopefully there'll be people from every generation wanting to, see me off. Not just my own loved ones, but perhaps people who even you guys don't know, unless it's all presuming the natural flow of things. So I think it's about the number of lives you touch, and also not just the way you touch, not just the number you touch, but how you touch them. things that really matter. And for me and for you, I think that would be in a spiritual way as well. You know, the person who calls me to come to faith is a very important person who I'll be eternally grateful for. You know, not cause me, but enable me rather. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
Not
what I'd say.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, him as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Cause you to come to faith.
Yeah. Yeah. But the one who enabled me, the one who led me, and did all those things that I was talking about earlier about answering questions and things. But yeah, I think that's what I would say. My legacy, hopefully, will be a lasting one because it will have touched other lives.
Yeah.
You'd hope.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I get that very right or do very well at that, but hopefully there are people who will miss me.
We'll see.
What were you going to say, Ford? Yeah.
I like to look into the history of great Christian apologists and people who did great stuff, and maybe it's a bit shallow, but I like to. I hope that in the future I'm known as a Christian who took his faith seriously. Essentially, I don't want that to be all I'm remembered for, but I think that's utmost in my hopes. I don't even know how you'd go about doing that sort of thing, but it's interesting. Yeah.
When you say take it seriously, what do you mean by that?
Well, in terms of.
Oh, put you on the spot.
Yeah, what does taking your faith seriously mean?
Doesn't mean being serious, does it?
No. I mean, like...
Be strong to convictions and things like that.
Being strong to convictions, going out there and being kind to people and knowing what you believe in and stuff like that. I don't know, like I say, I don't exactly know what I mean by what I say there, but
you live your faith in a very real way.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's all very vague, isn't it, these days?
Wasn't a superficial thing. It was something that was to your core, which hopefully you could say.
Yeah, there's a lot of suggestions here. Like, I was someone who loved people. Yeah. I was someone who lived in the present and not in the past or the future. Someone who made a difference to people.
Oh, good. That's mine.
I was a joyful person, and these are all very vague things, I think. But it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we are more than just the here and now, aren't we?
Yeah.
I was only thinking the other day how much pivots on our every day. I think we make a decision that affects the rest of our lives. I don't think every decision we make every day affects the rest of our lives, but you can look back even in your lives now already, you know, and say, oh gosh, if I hadn't have made that decision, I wouldn't be here, and that happened 10 years ago, you know. Yeah. Sometimes we make the right choices, sometimes we don't, you know. Some of those decisions will affect who you marry. Some of them will affect them because of who you marry, what children you'll have. You know, if I'd made some other decisions, I wouldn't have you guys. I'm glad I made those decisions. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all part of your legacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very good. Wow, that's deep.
Let's wrap that up. Quick and fast in a hurry. Well, thanks for talking about death and whatnot with me. It's great.
Thank you.
Death and life, yeah.
Oh yes, life. Yeah. It's important to bring that back to how we're doing things today.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be aware that we make it, what we do matters.
Devon's segment. Subject.
Okay, on to my show. Not your show anymore.
Devon show.
Your very own show. Yeah.
Yes. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's a little bit controversial. Surprise, surprise.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, but I wanted to hear you guys' opinions because I've been watching some videos and just doing some thinking lately. And I thought about this subject before. What are your guys' first impressions of women's sports?
Women's sports? What, like cheerleading?
Wow. There it goes again.
Now, come on, before we get complainants, that is a sport, so I don't see why we...
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Oh
in America, you can become a cheerleader. It's classed as a sport. I'm sure there'll be lots of cheerleaders around the world within our hearing who'll be saying, yeah, bring it on. Of course it is, you know.
Well, thank you for saving me right there.
I did, didn't I? That was a close shave. That was close call.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because people say, oh, why wouldn't women compete with men? And quite frankly, they are different, aren't they? Men and women, they tend to have different builds. It's harder for women to gain muscle. So it makes sense that they'd be separated, doesn't it?
It depends what you define as man and woman. Now, in today's day and age, a man or woman is based solely on your psychological preference.
Oh.
Or what you identify yourself with mentally. I'm not saying that's what you should be doing or what it is, but that's how it is now.
So there was a bit of a hubbub in the news recently, wasn't there, about a transgender person? Was it transgender or something? Trying to compete in a female sport.
A self-identifying female.
A man self-identifying as a woman, yeah.
It happens a lot, especially for things like MMA and physical sports like that. Men transition into women and then try and compete in their sports. And no matter how much estrogen hormone therapy they go through, they're never going to be like a born woman, a biological woman, So they just win everything without really training much, or obviously they train still, but not as much as the women, and they just easily win.
How strange.
Yeah, just because of the way the bodies are built.
And that still goes on, does it?
Yeah, it happens a lot. It happens more by the day because people are trying to get more woke.
Oh, here we go. We're getting rather.
There you go.
Dear.
Is this where you wanted this conversation to go?
Oh no, I wasn't talking about transgender sports. It's women's sports.
You were talking about female sport.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all for it. I think, obviously, and who wouldn't be? It's important that women have as much right to compete in sporting arena as men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there are certain sports, the physical ones, that it would be unfair to have them in the same arena as the male competitors, because that's just, like Ford said, not feasible, is it really? I think one of the problematic areas is where women don't get for example, and I know my favourite sport, Formula 1, is a physical sport. You might think, you're just driving a car.
Yes, you are.
It does have physical demands upon it, which they train massively to be able to cope with.
Yeah.
And so it probably does lend itself to a male form being predominantly more effective to coping with those physical stresses.
Has there ever been a female Formula 1 driver?
There has been one or two. They've never succeeded against the men quite as in the same way, but there are female motorsports contestants in other formats of the sport, in other motorsport formats. So
what's interesting
who did very well.
Yeah. What's interesting is though that females don't tend to be interested in sports, so female sports don't tend to get a very big following, do they?
Do you think?
And none of the women I know are interested in sports.
Okay. Well, then
so
you kind of go by that, can't you? But yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot out there, but not as much as many. Sorry, not as much as men. Yeah, I can speak.
That's a fair statement.
I know this is an audible medium, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a fair statement. I think it's hard to put everybody in the same boat, isn't it? But
that means that female athletes don't get as much recognition, do they? Because it's not as popular. So it does seem very harsh to say that female athletes just aren't as famous, I guess. Is that fair?
This is kind of the direction I wanted it to lead to eventually.
Okay.
No, not. It's not bad timing at all. It's good. But my question is then, do you think the best of the female in a certain sport should be paid the same as the best of the male in a certain sport?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
The thing is, they get paid on how much interest they gather, don't they? Because they get paid by the man. Oh, you know what? Actually, I don't know enough about sports. I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean,
thank you.
They do. That can be the case. Obviously, revenue is generated because of sports advertisement, and like we know that female football in no way draws the same crowds as male football. None of us are football fans and know very much about it.
No.
And the same, I was just thinking about tennis. It would have been Wimbledon, or I think Wimbledon would have just normally have finished by now. And I think that's a shocking outcry, really, that the top in the female tennis tournament doesn't earn anywhere near as much as the top of the male in the top tennis tournaments.
Yeah.
So how would you have
even
it
today? It should be on a par, I think, but unless it's a sport,
regardless
I don't
of revenue.
Tennis tennis perhaps is different to football, perhaps, because it has to be revenue based, depending on. I think the numbers involved probably demand that tennis can be treated a little bit differently to football.
Yeah, I feel like all tennis fans will watch a female tennis match, won't they? I mean,
Yeah.
I
feel the women's final of Wimbledon is just as big a draw as the men's final.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big names in women's tennis as well. So yeah,
but not as many. If you imagine, if there was a football league for women alongside the football league for men, which there might well be, we don't know because we're not big avid followers of it. But you can imagine the number. I know there's over 500 male Premiership football players. So just in the UK. So you can imagine that for the women as well. Well, there isn't that many top flank tennis players, both male and female. So it's all about the numbers, I think, isn't it?
It's all about the numbers. Figures. Why would the top female soccer player or football player get paid the same amount as a top male football player?
I don't think they can, that's my point. But they possibly could with tennis because of the numbers.
Yeah.
The audience figures.
Well, you said they should.
The footballers?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I said just anyone. I just said the top female player of any sport should be paid the same amount as the top male player of that sport.
In a fair world, they should, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a world about marketing and money and stuff, and it's not. It just doesn't work, you know.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant. I think they should, but I can understand why they don't. I think that's probably where I was going with that.
Which is sad, to be fair.
Because sport has become very financial, hasn't it, rather than competitive.
So how much of it do you think is actually gendered, like that issue?
Well, it's obviously gendered in as much as we've been saying. Do you mean agendered as in planned or?
Not agendered, but
no.
gendered. So it's a gendered issue. Because, for instance, let me hash out my idea.
Yeah. Come on.
If I am as good as a woman, but I am a man in, say, Counter-Strike, because I play lots of Counter-Strike, I will get paid not nearly as much as a woman.
Really?
Yeah, because there are female leagues and female team organisers and things like that, people who focus solely on the female scene. And the competition is so low on female scene that someone who's bad at the game can win.
Interesting, yeah.
I scrimmed against a female team, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and they were just easy.
Wow.
And yeah, so obviously for some things it's different than for other things. I know Australian soccer or Australian football women's Australian football gets a lot of revenue, but there's still a pay gap. So I think there's an issue there, and in certain instances, but I think someone should be paid purely on the revenue that they get or they draw in. I don't think it should be a gendered issue at all, personally.
But that means women would never get anywhere in sports.
Well, no, because they get revenue. They get more revenue than their skill deserves.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Oh dear, yeah. It's a nightmare, isn't it, to get your head around?
I think you just get paid for what you bring in. I mean, I think that makes sense. So if you're doing a job, any other job that's not sports, you get paid for a certain amount because you're actually certain value. The more value you are, you should get paid more. So same for sports. It doesn't matter what your gender is, your ethnicity, or whatever. If you're bringing in the money, you should get paid more.
Apparently, the most women's participants in sports is swimming.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't know if that's a male-dominated area or not, or female. I don't know. Yeah.
It is a big issue, and it's getting bigger as time goes by because of the transgender thing as well.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah,
because it ain't.
I think in thinking through it all, as you've been talking, trying to get my head around everything you've been saying, I think the gap widens depending on the audience. So in a smaller audience participation in sports, the gap is lesser. But on the larger audience, the bigger crowds that pull, then logic dictates that you're going to end up with women versus male pay gap being extended because the audience figures just aren't there, as we've already said.
Yeah. Yes, it's just the revenue that you draw in. But is that as unfortunate as me getting paid less for my position in Counter-Strike, my skill level, than someone at the top? Or does my situation not... My situation doesn't matter because I'm not a female?
It should be based on skill rather than gender, shouldn't it?
It should be based on skill, then I should get paid more than the female teams. But they bring in more revenue because people watch female teams.
The men's teams bring in more revenue, don't they?
Yeah, the top
must be better
teams,
to get in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
So the top men's one are very, very good, and they bring in the most.
Yeah.
The top women's one bring in more than me, for sure. But
they're not as good as you.
I'm not going to say they're not as good, but the skill difference, the top women's one, they're good. But the top women's one, they, in relation to their skill versus me, it doesn't make sense. So if I was a female, then I'd be getting a lot more money, basically.
Okay.
If I was in a female team.
And how do you feel about identifying as a woman?
There's actually been instances of that, like 5 guys going, hang on, let's identify as women and get into this female league, and then just
oh my days.
Yeah, it's not good. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of issues and a lot of nuances. As I said, the transgender thing coming up as well. What should be paid, and how should that get paid to each individual? I think that's why we've obviously got organisers of teams to then distribute money as their money comes in. And I think that can only be fair, but obviously there's still situations where the women are drawing in revenue, but the organisers still aren't paying them as much as the men for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I think there's still some ways to go to make it better, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
Okay.
Well, listener, please slide in into the comments and tell us how wrong we are.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear it.
Interesting. You always stretch our minds, Devon.
Oh dear.
Especially at this time of the morning. Maybe I'll have a better way of comprehending it all when I'm woken up.
Yeah. Just a real quick. It's kind of what sparked it off. I was watching those videos the other day. I think it was yesterday. That the NBA obviously gets a huge revenue, huge profits, but the WNBA, which is women's NBA, has yet to make a profit. So the NBA just props up the WNBA.
Wow.
But the WNBA is still just demanding more money for the players.
Really?
Right, even though they're not making anything.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's that.
So it's nothing. The sportsmen and women aren't to blame. The organisations aren't to blame. It's the fans that are to blame.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Stop being so sexist, fans.
Yeah. If you want certain group to earn more, go watch them.
Equality in pay, then we need equality in viewing, and so it's down to the public.
Yeah.
Ouch. That's uncomfortable truth, isn't it?
It's your fault.
You heard it here first.
Cool.
Well, it often is with these things. We point fingers at all sorts of subjects, and I'm not going to get onto another one now. But at the end of the day, it's all down to supply and demand.
Yep.
And, why is the high street dying? Because we want to save 10 pence on Amazon. It's our fault.
And not go down to town, yeah.
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 So we can't blame anybody else for the death of the high street. I know I'm going off topic now.
Can't
but
blame Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, exactly. He's just a businessman.
Yeah, just filling a gap.
No more or less a businessman than your local high street independent trader.
He's just good at it.
But yeah, on a different scale, because he's providing what people want. But if we didn't want it, it wouldn't be there.
Yep, I
we
completely
can't
agree.
blame.
That's capitalism for you.
Yeah.
You're a strong believer in capitalism, aren't you?
I think it's the best form we have, yeah. But that's another subject.
It is.
And that's for next time.
Moving on.
Okay, done, sorted, in the bag.
And now it's time for Random Chatting.
Alright, kids. I know you want to run off and play your Nintendo 64, but have you finished your homework?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get your priorities right. Yeah.
Well, let's see what you got for your homework then.
Okay.
We're talking this week about an album that we've all listened to, Every Kingdom by Ben Howard. He's folk, I'd say. Is it folk music, Devon? What do you
Like indie, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to nail it down. What genre of music? I'm rubbish at doing that unless it's very, very obvious.
It's like acoustic indie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Folk is. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that in some of the songs. Yeah.
And I was also trying to figure out who it reminds me of. But anyway, we'll come to that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. It reached its peak when it hit the number 4 spot of the UK album charts.
Did it?
Yeah, which is pretty good, I'd imagine.
And none of us had heard of him, had we, last week when it was
No.
mentioned?
Yeah, but
His name rang a bell to me, yeah, but I don't think I could have mentioned any songs.
What I found interesting is when it was released in the UK in the year of our Lord 2011, he
Wow.
did 200 copies in cassette format.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gosh.
he did it in cassette. How cool is that?
Very
Interesting.
good. But
Limited
that has
edition.
made a bit of a resurgence, I think, hasn't it?
What? Because really,
I think so. I've heard that before, but more
Cassette
recently.
tapes, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, 2011 seems like a long time ago, and I thought in the last couple of years I've heard of artists producing albums on cassette.
oh wow,
Yeah. As a novel thing, you know.
yeah, it's
Obviously,
limited edition. so-
Vinyl made a resurgence, hasn't it? But cassettes also, which I cannot understand because cassette is a inferior format. But anyway,
Whoa,
oh, we've had that discussion before, haven't we?
Yeah,
But
we have,
anyway,
yeah.
you're distracting us now.
yeah, very much so. What do you
Yeah.
think of it?
I haven't got a huge amount to say about it. I mean, it's very relaxing. It's quite good.
Yeah.
You can tell that he's put a lot of work into each of the songs. Obviously, it's got the same kind of sound to it, but they are individual still. I like how a lot of the musical things is quite intricate in what he's playing. Yeah, and I rate it good.
Okay.
It's got some great singing. There's a sort of a kind of choral beginning at a lot of the songs, isn't there? I don't know if the choral is the right word, but yeah, it's quite nice. Great music, although it's mostly guitar. It's a bit samey.
It is a lot of acoustic guitar. I found it a bit repetitive, if I'm honest, and it's interesting that Devon should say that he found it quite. How do you describe it then?
It's like the same kind of sound, but
Yeah.
unique in each song, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
meant to
didn't get that.
all be about the words, isn't it? I'd imagine.
So I had two problems with it, but I also had other things I liked about it as well. No, I had three problems with it.
Ooh.
Shall I go through them? I couldn't distinguish too much, which is it's so interesting how two different people can hear music differently, isn't it? I must admit, I was laying in bed listening to it in the dark, which is a nice place to listen to music, and it was very soothing. It was very good bedtime listening album. But as each song started, I thought, oh, we're back here again. It felt very similar. I wouldn't be able to say, oh, I like the song that went, because they all seem to go in the same acoustic way, the same kind of musically, very similar for me. The second thing I wasn't that keen about was his voice.
Oh, really?
Oh, it grated on me.
Really?
I must admit, it did grate. I could tell he is a gifted musician, but I wasn't enjoying his voice. I know that
Interesting.
might not be a popular. It was like a real kind of, I don't know, and I've heard it before with other artists. That it's the new way of singing, perhaps. Although you're saying this was from 2011, it's that period. I think I've heard male vocals sound a little bit like, I don't know. I just it doesn't. I can't describe what I mean by that very accurately, anyway. And the third thing I didn't like about it was and this isn't just to him, but I've heard other acoustic guitar players where they rasp the I don't know how they do it. I'm not a musician, but it's like scratches up the fretboard.
Yep.
And
The chord changes.
it makes that horrible noise.
You don't like that?
I don't like it, no.
Oh, okay.
I know musicians use it to add a different sound.
Yeah.
I dislike it immensely.
Well, maybe
He didn't-
it's overused in this. Maybe.
It was not on every track. I'll give him that. It wasn't on every track, but on some
Right.
tracks it was far more prominent. And I don't know what the terminology is for that. Musicians who are listening, or yourselves, might know more.
I'm afraid not. No.
No, but you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like it's lazy musicianship, but I know it's deliberate, so I can't say it's lazy. But it feels like it's you're not removing your fingers off the strings enough as you're changing,
Right. Yeah.
as you're moving around the fretboard. But what do I know? I only know I dislike the result,
I think it's very radio friendly if you only play like one track,
Yeah.
Any one of the songs is quite nice to listen to, I think.
Yeah.
If you listen to the whole lot, maybe a bit boring.
It felt that to me. I mean, if you listen back to Dire Straits' album that we did last time we reviewed an album, there was such a variety of sounds within that, and with the other albums that we've done, it feels to me as though modern music is becoming very method and not very varied on a given album. I mean, you listen back to our first album we did, Dark Side of the Moon. No two tracks were the same, were they?
No, but then we've done Bon Iver, and he was interesting,
Mm.
And he's a modern chap. I think we all said that was pretty good, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think maybe a lot of pop music is very. I suppose this isn't pop though, is it?
No. I find myself sounding like my parents when I was.
Yeah.
But
I think it depends on what you're used to and what you're expecting from a song or from an album. I listen to a lot of 80s albums and they do sound very similar still. Because of the different way that they're experimenting with the sounds that they're creating.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're all brand new sounds. So you're going to get like, oh wow, it's brand new sounds for the time, but then they use that sound over and over again for the whole album. So it depends on what you're used to and what you're looking for, I think, and what you're kind of expecting out of an album. Because I didn't really find that in this, but
obviously it's going to affect people differently, and he was a very skilled musician. And obviously he's done very well.
Yeah.
He's a superstar, and I'm not. But it's just taste, isn't it? There was one particular track that stood out for me, and it was one of the faster, and it was called The Fear, I think it was. Track 4, is it?
Ooh.
The Fear, I think it might
Track
have been
6.
called. I did enjoy that one the most, yeah. And I think I enjoyed it the most because it wasn't as laid back. It was a little bit faster paced.
Yeah, he described. I think in one place he has described this album as his self-empowerment anthem.
Okay.
So take from that what you will. I think it's supposed to be
No
uplifting.
idea what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. He's also a keen surfer, apparently. That's how he describes himself.
You've done your homework for us.
I googled it to be sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely did that.
Yeah. Thank you, Wikipedia. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything else to add? I've said more than I probably expected to or intended to.
I don't personally think so. I'll probably listen to it again because I did enjoy it, and it's got a lot of the sounds I like. I may even try and learn some of them on the guitar because it's got a lot of sound that I like, isn't it?
That's impacted you then.
Oh yeah, it was good.
I mean, it's a replicatable sound, isn't it? I mean, you don't need many foot pedals to replicate this sound.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah, because it's acoustic, and a lot of it's plucking as well, which I like plucking. So.
Well, that last one we did was Dire Straits. What did we do before that?
Bon Iver?
Noah and the Whale.
Noah
I
and the
liked
Whale, yeah.
that. Noah and the Whale. I think I do remember saying, I'll listen to this again. I don't feel the same way about Ben Howard. Possibly that one track I enjoyed the most, I would.
Cool.
I'm just an oddball, I suppose.
So, how much folksy charm out of 100% do you give
I
it?
thought you were going to call it scratchy fretboards.
Oh, yeah, we can go there if you like.
Is that? Am I describing that correctly?
Yeah, we know what you mean.
I mean?
You know what you mean, yeah.
That noise.
How many scratchy fretboards out of 25, or how many frets there are in a guitar? I don't know.
You should know. You're the guitarist.
Oh, no.
The bass guitarist. I was thinking about this, and if I'm honest, it's probably a 5.5 for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's above half.
Out of 25.
Oh right. No.
No, okay. Out of 10.
Out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah, out of 10, I'll probably go 7.4.
Yeah, I'd probably match Devon there. It's sort of it's above bad. It's above good. I wouldn't say it's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd give it a 7 maybe.
So do you feel you liked it in the middle between Devon and I then?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not as much as Devon, but
I
more
didn't
than me.
say
Yeah.
like I really, really liked it, but there's some things that I can replicate and that I do. I don't know.
I think if you're in the mood for it, it'd be nice in the background, definitely. And
Yeah,
it was nice to have on as I lay in bed. And I probably, if I knew didn't have to stay awake so I could hear it all, I would have easily fell asleep during it. It would have been nice background bedtime music.
Yeah, if I'm lying in a bath reading a book, maybe I'll whack this on.
But again, I think I found his voice difficult to listen to, and so I wasn't connecting with the lyrics in the way I would with other artists, I don't think. Because I didn't enjoy his voice.
That's a shame.
Well,
Shame, is it? Sorry.
I didn't recommend it, so.
No. Are we allowed to say who recommended it?
Right.
so sorry to our what do you call it, benefactor, I guess.
Producing editor who recommended it.
Yes.
It was Trinity's choice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right, not great.
I'd be interested to know if she recommended it because she loves it. I would imagine it. I can. As I was listening to it, I was thinking, I can see why Trinity likes it.
I think I've heard her talk about it before.
Yeah, presuming that she does. Yeah. I like it that she finds these artists that would otherwise have passed me by. Yeah.
Sorted.
Moving on.
It's homework time and hasta la vista, baby.
All right, ladies and gents. Next week or next time, we'll be doing the homework of a game. We've decided to shake it up a bit in terms of our games and try a different medium. We're going to do a text-based adventure game.
Wow.
Yes, going old school here.
Wow.
No fast thumb bashing, controller killing action then.
But how am I going to be good at it then? I'm just going to lose it.
How do you get good at it? Yeah. You've got to make the right choices.
Oh no.
Or be good at texting.
The problem I have with text-based adventure games is, which I haven't played for a long, long time, is how do you know if you've made the wrong choice? I suppose if you die, then that's a wrong choice. But
Yes.
yeah.
I've never played a text-based adventure game, so this is going to be a new one on me.
Okay.
Anyway, it's called Magium.
I think it's Magium.
Okay.
Magium. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. It's an app. What do you call it? A phone game, I guess.
Yeah, downloadable
you can find
on
it
the
on
App Store.
Yeah. Play Store.
So play along. Yeah.
I'm just going to wrap this up. If you've liked this podcast episode, please give it a cheeky like. That would be really great and it would help us out, or at least it would me. Anyway, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Give us some encouragement. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. If you've hated
Stop us
this, why don't you keep it to yourself? Because we don't need that negativity in our lives.
Do we not?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Oh, Ford, don't forget to promo the merch.
Oh yes. Now, if you want to email us, if you're interested in some Fear of Anything t-shirts, then we'll get back to you with the details. We've got a nice few options of colour and whatnot.
Yes.
Just email us your interests. No obligation. Yeah.
Because we will be placing orders soon for ourselves and everybody else who wants one. There'll be opportunity later on as well to get it after the first batch, but sooner you let us know, the sooner you'll get it.
You can find us on all major podcasting platforms and also YouTube. If you want to give us any of your opinions on anything we've said, we're on Twitter at Theory of Anything. That's TING at the end.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a more private option, you can email us at theoryofanything@hotmail.com. Those details are in the description anyway, so help yourself.
If you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube,
even the
actually, yes,
platforms.
And within the podcast platforms as well. Thank
Wow.
you. I am not correct in saying that.
The magic
sorry.
of modern technology.
If we're going to start correcting each other, we're going down a rabbit hole here. Slippery slope. Anyway, that's all we've got for today. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Around the microphone.
There we go.
Half stole your line there.
Oh, shall I do it?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just say goodbye then.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.